I look forward to getting to know you through the papers you write and any emails you might want to send me. You can reach me at overman@biblicalworldview.com. In this brief clip, I'd like to tell you just a bit about myself. I was the headmaster of a Christian school for 14 years in Seattle, Washington. I was born and raised in Seattle, and I did my undergraduate work at the University of Washington, where I received 2 bachelor's degrees, one in music and one in German language and literature. I spent many hours in this very library. And when it came to understanding the critical role that a biblical worldview plays in education and in every other part of life, my eyes were really opened when I took graduate courses from Dr. Albert Green at Seattle Pacific University. My emphasis there was on the philosophy of Christian education. Dr. Green is the author of Reclaiming the Future of Christian Education. Al became a friend as well as a mentor, and I'm convinced that if it were not for Al, I would not be doing what I'm doing today in the field of biblical worldview and biblical worldview integration. I'm very much indebted to him. This photo was taken about a year before he passed on in his early 90s, and that's my wife, Kathy, sitting next to me. Al often told me about books he had read, and he encouraged me to read them right up to the last meeting I had with him. Well, out of my experience as a Christian school principal and out of my desire to help teachers and students and parents to understand how important a biblical worldview is and what a difference it makes in shaping our thinking and our culture, whether it's the culture of a school or a business or a home or a nation, I ended up writing a book called Assumptions That Affect Our Lives. This is one of 2 texts you'll be reading for this course. You'll be getting to know this book quite well. The other book is one by Darrell Miller called Life Work, a Biblical Theology for What You Do Every Day. You'll meet Darrell Miller later in the course. In the year 2000, Kathy and I founded a nonprofit educational organization called Worldview Matters, and I've been directing that organization ever since. Our organization is dedicated to helping followers of Christ to recover from secularized thought and to make practical and relevant connections between the biblical worldview and all of life, whether it's teaching or running a business or doing the dishes. And if you want to know more about Worldview Matters, I invite you to visit our website at biblicalworldview.com. For about 8 years, I collaborated with Don Johnson, the superintendent of Cascade Christian Schools in Puyallup, Washington. Don is the founder and director of the Biblical Worldview Institute, which is a division of Cascade Christian Schools. With Don and his teachers, we developed a specific methodology for designing academic lesson plans that integrate the biblical worldview with any subject at any grade level. And I'm indebted to Don for his vision and commitment to this endeavor. Developing a practical approach to lesson plan design that incorporates the world of education with the bigger picture of a biblical worldview. And the methodology that was developed at Cascade Christian Schools was put into a training course called Making the Connections. And this course has been taught to literally thousands of teachers and administrators around the world. I'll tell you more about that course later. A few years after founding Worldview Matters, I went back to school to pursue a Doctor of Ministry degree through Bakke Graduate University, studying under Dr. Ray Bakke, who wrote A Theology as Big as the City. My emphasis was on theology of work, And in conjunction with my D-Min studies, I developed a course called God's Pleasure at Work. And this book came out of that, along with Volume 2, The Difference One Life Can Make. And these are two resources that you will be becoming familiar with as you develop lessons for your own teaching. I'll explain that later. A couple of years after completing my D-Min work, I had the privilege of studying under Chuck Colson through his Centurions program. Chuck took about 100 men and women a year through an intensive program of study and application in the arena of biblical worldview. And Chuck was a great encouragement to me. Well, over the years, I've been privileged to teach on the subject of biblical worldview and biblical worldview integration. I've done this throughout the United States as well as in Central America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. And at times, Kathy and I have taught together. She's by far the best discovery I made at the University of Washington. Today, over 40 years since we were married, we have 4 adult children and 10 grandchildren. They're posing nicely for this shot, but this is how they really look. Well, I continue to teach workshops, to write, to consult, and I generally try to go where the Lord directs me and do what He wants me to do. If you want to know more about my personal coaching services, I invite you to visit firstcommission.blogspot.com. And when I say coaching, I mean one-on-one sessions or small group sessions over the phone in which I work with individuals or groups in fleshing out the applications of biblical worldview integration to whatever sphere people work in, whether it's education or business or you name it. After this course, if you'd like to receive one-on-one coaching with respect to designing integrative lesson plans for your classroom or developing a scope and sequence in biblical worldview integration for your school as a whole, contact me. I'll be happy to coach you over the phone or Skype from anywhere in the world. And if you want me to come teach a live in-service training for your staff, send me an email and we'll set that up. Well, thank you for letting me share a bit about myself. Again, I look forward to getting to know you, and I'm glad to have you in the class.